A pantser, a plotter, and real talk about the indie author life. If you're ready to get the support you need for your author career and life, join international indie bestseller Angela J. Ford and young adult fantasy author Stephanie Wabwa as they talk about all the things writing, publishing, and the real life of an indie author. Thanks for tuning in to the Indie Author Lifestyle Show. Together, let's build the writing life you love.
Hello, and welcome to episode 34 of the Indie Author Lifestyle Podcast. We are back with a very interesting topic for today, and I'm really excited to discuss it. We'll be talking about what happens when you decide that you don't want to be a full-time author. And so I think this will be really fun to dive into it. But before that, we have a couple of announcements. I'm very excited because we just released our brand new workshop today. And at the time you're listening to it, it will have already been out. But if you don't know, we just released Budgeting for Indie Authors. And this is a 1-hour workshop where Stephanie and I really dig into what to expect when you are getting ready to publish a book, what your finances should look like kind of moving forward if you have book releases, depending on how many you're going to release every single year, or even if you're doing monthly releases. And then we even talk about what our own budgets look like. And, you know, the budgets of successful authors, like they have book budgets, but they also vary. And then we also talk a little bit about our philosophy and why you should never, ever, ever feel bad for having a small budget or a massive budget. And so if you're interested in that workshop, I hope you do grab it. You can head over to indieauthorlifestyle.com/workshops, and we'll also have the link in the show notes for you. But you can go ahead and grab Budgeting for Indie Authors. And with that, Stephanie, over to you. How is your week? What's going on?
Hello, party people. And actually, just one more announcement as well for you guys. Just remember that anything we discuss on the show, you can come and have a conversation with us in the comment section on the Indie Author Lifestyle platform. We are always in there. For more reasons than we need to get into, we actually do not have a specific community on a social media platform, but we are always communicating with our audience on our actual Indie Author Lifestyle platform. So find us in there, comment your thoughts, share your feedback on this episode, and we will be in there in the comment section with you communicating. And as for me, first of all, I'm excited about the workshop. Like, y'all, it is so good. I mean, like, not to shoulder tap or anything, but it is so good. I'm excited because now for all of you who are like, I don't know how much money I need to set out, I don't even know what expenses I'm going to be shelling money out for, or if you're already halfway through the trenches and you're like, oh my goodness, what else am I going to be dealing with? I'm already close to the red. This will help you. This workshop will get you clear straight away so that you can be prepared for your career journey. But as for me, so a personal note, my grandmother did pass away, unfortunately, due to COVID-19 symptoms several weeks ago. And so today, actually, yeah, and within 24 hours, we will be hopping in a vehicle and driving down so that we can go through the final preparations, so that we can, go ahead and put together her homegoing service and, kind of just celebrate the magical woman that she was and the legacy that she left behind in all of us. So it's a sad time, but it's also like a good time in the sense that my family is really knitting together in this time, and there's just a lot of love and laughter and a lot of healing and reconciliation from things that happened through the years. So it's a sad situation, but it's done so much good for the family in a sense, and so we're really grateful for that. All of the siblings are coming together, the cousins, so that'll be nice. And so while dealing with all of that, I've been trying to really get into the nitty gritty of this next book, which is the sequel of Seraphim Falling. And it has been, It hasn't been necessarily challenging. It's more so that I don't really have that much time in my hands like I did with Seraphim Falling to like really dig into it. But I'm in the trenches of that. I'm still pre-writing. I wish I were already writing because I know it's gonna be so much fun. So I'm like really excited. But I'm still plotting. I'm still, digging into the character, making sure that I get all of those things right. Because I am a plotter, I like to basically have the book quote unquote dunzo before I start writing. So like I am stress free when I am writing. And I'm hoping that during this coming week, even though there will be a lot of different things going on, I do hope that I'll be able to just sink my teeth into it and really get going because I'm excited. I love these characters so much. I love the world of Eldel. It's literally part of my heart. So I'm excited to dive back into that and then work on some other fun indie author lifestyle stuff we have coming up in the next quarter. We'll announce those in time. But yeah, that's what I've got going on. What about you?
Oh gosh, so much there. I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother, but I'm really glad that your family's coming together and you have that time to really celebrate the life and think back and remember. That's really good and healing too. Um, as for myself, I am celebrating the release of my 15th book, which seems huge. It's just the more I write, the more I'm seeing like the process of, it's just sitting down and getting it done and no excuses. And it's been really fun. Like I've been having a lot of fun writing this year. And I think with kind of everything going on in the world, it's given me a moment to like step back and kind of figure out this is what I think is really important. This is my truth. This is what I believe. I don't have to be putting my emotions in a place where I'm going to be stressed and full of anxiety all the time. I can just stay with like, hey, I'm writing. And writing for me really is something that has been with me throughout my entire life. It is my outlet. Like when things go wrong, when bad things happen, when I'm down, when I'm happy, it's just like no matter what, like I know that writing is my outlet. And I think that's really why the words continue to pour out. And I love that you're working on pre-writing right now and making sure you have your story all together. I spent a week writing like 14,000 words in a short story and I just read it and it's just pure and utter crap. I really enjoyed writing it though, but I'm gonna dump it and have to, like, spend some time, like, actually doing, like, pre-writing. I learned my little lesson from that one. It was just fun, just, like, writing whatever came to mind, and sometimes it really works out for me. This time it did not, and so I started working on another story, and I jotted down in notes on my iPhone, like, the little, like, 10 chapters. I just did, like, a little blurb. Like, sometimes I even just did, like, a word for what the chapter is about so that I have a guideline so that I will not drive off the rails again. But regardless, it can be hit or miss, but it's a fun time. But I'm excited to really dive into our topic for today. And this topic is for you if you are thinking about writing a book, but you don't want it to be your full time career. And you know that you have multiple passions and you're not just going to sit down and write books for the rest of your life. And yeah, with that, let's dig in. Before we get started talking on today's topic, here's a word about our indie author lifestyle workshops. Workshops are designed for career authors who want in depth training on certain topics to help you take your career to the next level.
Join us each month to dig into writing, publishing, and book marketing strategies for only $27.99. Plus, get access to the exclusive community. Find out our topic of the month by going to indieauthorlifestyle.com/workshops. Now, back to our episode. And I'll go ahead and add to like this is also for we're also having these conversations because let's just be honest, there are a lot of you who are full-timers already and you're past book 10, 15, 20, and now you're reaching a place where you're like, oh, I love this, but I don't only love this. And now you're like, do I have room to pivot or not? And so for me, going into this conversation, y'all, for me, it's really about having a conversation to trigger for you guys to have conversations about this because this is a real thing that we need to discuss. I don't think I've honestly not heard conversations about this. I've not heard, really indie authors come out of the woodworks and say, oh, well, I don't want to be a full time author. Because, like, the pinnacle of being an indie author, you assume, is I'm indie. I can quit my 9 to 5. I can retire my spouse and my family and I can go on vacations and I'm writing books all day and I'm marketing and that's it. Like you're living the life, right? Because you're doing this full time. But it's interesting. This conversation popped up because, Angela and I were speaking just off the air and I was sharing how I realized a lot of the roadblocks that I faced with my writing journey and my, advancement as an indie author. I kept stumbling because in my brain, I kept telling myself, you want to be a full time author. You want to do this. This is all you want to do. You just want to wake up and write and read and edit and, market, and that's it. And I realized, girl, you played yourself because that is not what you want to do at all. You are multi passionate. For those of you who do not know, Angela is as well, but I am a web and graphic designer. I've been messing with code and with front end web development since I was quite literally 12 years old. Like I started doing websites, for myself and for fun, but then like I started really getting professional at it since I was like 18 years old. So for me, web design is quite literally, I don't love it as much as I love writing, as much as I love reading. Writing is the number one thing in this life for me, period. But I absolutely love web and graphic design. And I have a web and graphic design company. And so I would always struggle because I'd be like, one day I would have my author hat on, and then the next day I would have my designer hat on, and then the next day I'd be like, I don't know which hat to wear. Oh my gosh, I'm stressed. I don't know what to do, And that bled into everything. That bled into the products that I created. It bled into how I showed up on social media. It bled into like, do I have separate media accounts? Do I blend them? Do I talk about them both? Do I hide one from the other? Like, it was just, it created chaos. It actually created chaos. And it wasn't until recently I realized, wait a minute, dude, like you actually don't want to be a full-time author. You are too multi-passionate. You want to be an author that brings in full-time income. Right? I want to have multiple streams of income from being an author. I want to have a sense of, okay, if I do nothing else but just be an author, I am perfectly fine in this life. However, I don't want to be limited to that. And I realized once that clicked in my brain, peace unlocked, just the way I was able to look at my journey as an author and because then I realized, oh wait, okay, so I actually don't need to stress myself in trying to publish 8 books a year. It's okay if I only do 1 or 2, because at the end of the day, I don't have 8 hours a day to pour into a book. Like sometimes I hardly have two, but that's all right. The book will come in time. I'm not neglecting it, and that's perfectly okay. And so yeah, like those are just some of my initial thoughts where it's like, yo, it's okay if you are an indie author or you aspire to be a career indie author, but not only be an indie author. It is 7,000% okay for you to be a multi-passionate entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, I know too many authors who are not only authors, but they're a photographer, they're a designer, they like to knit, they like to do calligraphy, they're illustrators, and they kind of restrain their other creative outlets and their other creative gifts because it's like, well, no, I'm an indie author. I need to be, a full-time author. And it's like, no, 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 no. You can be a full-time author and a full-time designer. You could be a full-time author and a full-time illustrator. That is perfectly okay.
Yeah, I love this. And I love how it just like clicked for you and you were thinking like, oh, like you really like not to be cliche, but you really can have everything. Like you can do it all. It's just the fact that you have to be organized and really manage your time well. And I was thinking even about indie author lifestyle. Like we have this podcast, we have the workshops, we've got the website, we're on there, we're in the comments, we're always doing things to move indie author lifestyle forward. And I was thinking about it and I was like, indie author lifestyle was born out of a passion. It wasn't because we're like, "Ooh, how can we make money?" Oh, indie author lifestyle. It was like, how can we reach authors and start conversations? And that's exactly what we're doing. And we wanted to reach out specifically too because we haven't really seen any other like Black female indie authors in this space, like having these conversations. And that's something else that I was really excited to do. I was like, you know what? No one else is doing this. Like there's a spot that needs to be filled. And it's been fun. Like it's been such a blessing. Like podcast days are one of those days that I really look forward to because I know we're going to have a great conversation and we're going to have real talk and we're going to talk about things that affect not only indie authors but our lifestyle as well. And that's really what indie author lifestyle is all about. Just having those real conversations and being able to discuss like, hey, like I'm working on this book and I'm stuck, or you know what, I don't just want to be a full-time career author. I have other things to do. And one of the things for me that's been really important is having multiple streams of income. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things like I have more of a corporate background. And so I did work for a corporate company and I thought, I'll work my way up and I'll make that big money and it'll be great. And I found that as soon as I was a manager of a technology development company for 2 years, and I just got so weary and so completely burnt out. I was like, I just have to have other streams of income. Like, I don't want to just pour all of my heart and time and energy into this one thing and then be like, okay, when I start to quit and I get really burnt out and tired, then I have nothing to fall back on. And so I've always kind of been in the creative space and wanting to have multiple streams of income. But I think one of the things I really like about it is the fact that there are no limits. Like you don't have to limit yourself and just say, I'm only a writer and that is that. And I found that writing is one of my favorite things. Like I love it. I used to run a digital marketing platform, and I still do build websites for authors, but I don't really promote it. I only do it like as people ask, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that for you. Sure, I'm in because it's really fun and I enjoy that. But I have other things that I do. I do contract work for a law firm, and just working on their website and stuff, and that keeps me super duper busy. But you know what? I enjoy it. It's fun. And so I find that the creative chaos, while it isn't there, I do need to have lots of different things going on in my life in order to keep me organized. And so I like knowing that, like, okay, like this is the day, like I'm gonna record a podcast. This day I'm gonna work on the show notes. I'm also gonna make sure I set aside 1 to 2 hours to get writing in because I don't write for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours because it burns me out. And I don't write all day because I just don't like that. I like to have those shorts like, okay, this hour or these like 3 hours, I'm going to write. And usually I can get that done on the weekends. Like, there's always downtime where, especially early in the mornings, when me and my husband get up and we have our stepdaughter, and we just have downtime, and then I can sit down and I can write for 3 hours and drink my coffee, and I know that no one's going to come around and be like, "Hey, let's do this and the other." Like, it's just going to be relaxing, and then after that, I can get on with the rest of the day and just hang out with family and do other things. But it's nice to kind of have that way of dividing up time and allowing myself to fully embrace things and to give myself time off. And so knowing that, like, hey, like maybe I just released a book, like, here is my weekend off. There's no pressure to write unless I feel like it. There's no pressure at all. Like it's just really fun, like knowing that there are these different things. And right now I'm learning Photoshop and I'm learning how to do my own typography and to do my paperback covers. And that has been really fun and I'm obsessed with it. But it's just those things like I'm giving myself permission to live and really enjoy it no matter what it is.
Yeah, no, I think we remove the question of what if I don't want to be a full-time author, we automatically limit ourselves. And when you box yourself, you're going to reach a point where there's going to be a slight frustration because you reach the ceiling almost with what it is that you love, because you no longer have any more room to like just let yourself be. You know what I mean? And um for those that are, if you're maybe considering and you realize, oh, okay, I want to do the author thing. I want to have books on books on books. I want to have multiple series. I want to write in multiple genres, but I don't only want to do that. Like there are other things you want to do. First of all, the first thing I would say is you need to define what success is to you, what legacy building is to you, what fulfillment looks like to you. I think too often, I can't speak for many other industries because I'm literally only in the author industry and the design industry, and that's it. And that's like digital design. So I can only speak for those two. But I will say, I think far too often we put other people that we respect and that inspire us on pedestals, and the accomplishments that they have that we see, because it's not like we know everything that they've done. It's not like we know everything they've accomplished, but, the accomplishments that we are privileged to see, we allow that to be what defines success and fulfillment for our personal selves. When really that might not even be the true essence of success and fulfillment for the individual themselves. And so I think it behooves us, whether it's, a JK Rowling, which it's interesting because I told Angela this on air. I was like, dude, not even like JK is a full-time author, right? Like, I mean, she's definitely bringing in the coin, right? But she does far more than just write books, And so it's one of those things where it's like, even the people that we aspire to be, as far as, oh, they've written up this amount of books, or they've sold these amount of copies, or they have this amount of translations of their book around the world, we can't allow that to define what is fulfillment for us, right? Like for fulfillment for me is really just doing what I enjoy and impacting as many people as possible with what I'm doing, because I know it can touch them and it can change their lives. And so that is not only in just writing a book. Like for me, that's in writing a book, and then one day having that book be turned into film, and then one day having that be broken down into a television series, because people absorb content in different forms. One day that might be a book, a coloring book. One day it might be going on a tour in high schools and talking to, African American teenage girls like me. Like I wish I had, an author who looked like me, who wrote books about people that looked like me, and came to my school and was like, hey, like look at this character and what they can do, and understand that this is a parallel of how strong you can be, And so it's that visionary mind, it's that ambitious mind, it's that creative mind that says there's so much more to what we can do as authors. It's beautiful. Listen, I respect those that do this full time. We know many authors, this is their full time. They absolutely love it. They wake up, they hit the keys for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, week in and week out. It is their full time job. That is what they do. And that is absolutely awesome. You hear me? Like that is amazing, And for a very long time, that was like the peak of, my desire. That was the ultimate goal. I want to be able to sit at a desk and write for 8 hours a day full time. Like, like that's what I wanted to do. But, as my creativity developed, and as just my vision expanded, I realized, oh no, sis, like there's so much more you want to do, mainly because, I have different whys, and the whys are so much deeper now that I'm older, and there's a greater impact I want to create, which I cannot do only through this single form of art, which is writing novels. And so I really think that, when you're launching into having to define, okay, what do I do now? I'm a full-time author. I've been doing this for the past 5-10 years. I have X amount of books and I feel boxed in. Take some time and really dig into your why. Dean Graziosi, he is a multimillionaire He's humble though. He's humble, and he has a book called Millionaire Secrets. And in the book, he talks about how he sat with one of his mentors. I don't know if it was in a mastermind or something like that, but he sat with one of his mentors, and they went through this principle. It's basically called, I think it's called 7 levels deep. And so what you do is you essentially keep asking why 7 times. And so, for an example of the exercise would be, like let's say Angela and I were sitting at a couch, kind of like therapist and patient, right? And it's like, okay, why do you want to be an author? Because X, Y, and Z. Okay. So you said because of X, Y, and Z. Now, why do you want to do this because of X, Y, and Z? And you just continue asking why. And the exercise, by the time you reach, and I've done this exercise for something else before, and by the time you ask yourself why the 7th time, you really get to the actual deep gut core meaning of why you're actually doing something. And it's so moving, it actually can bring you to tears, because you realize, oh, this is my heartbeat, this is why I'm doing this. It's like literally in your gut. And so if you're in a space where you're like, I don't know if I just want to do the author thing only full time, why don't you do that? I challenge you to do that 7 levels deep challenge, and just keep asking yourself, why do you want to do what you're wanting to do? And then allow yourself the room to pivot and see where you could pivot and where your creativity could take you. What else do you like to do? Do you like to knit? Do you like to do calligraphy? Do you like to do photography? Oh, but I don't have a camera. Okay, well, you have an iPhone maybe, or an Android. Pick up your phone and get started there. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, it's allowing you the space to realize you are a multifaceted human being, and you have the ability and the power to do so much if you don't restrain yourself.
Oh, well said. And it just gets me so excited and like passionate, and just like reminds me to go back to my why did I start? Why did I want to do this? And I remember when I was first starting off, after I quit my corporate job, I went off and I was just kind of doing my own thing. And I remember meeting with a business coach, and we just had one session together, but it was very phenomenal because I remember she did something very similar where I'd be talking to her and I'd tell her, "Well, like I decided I didn't want to work in corporate all the time. I didn't want to always be working for someone else and making money for someone else all the time. I want to build my own thing. I want to stand on my own 2 feet." And her question for me after everything I would tell her, she'd be like, "Okay, and why is that?" And it was really encouraging me to dig deep, and it was really eye-opening, kind of like looking inward at myself. And this is something you can even do, like journaling it out or going back to your childhood and remembering those moments that make you just where you just feel that like happiness and satisfaction. And I think there's so much for like having your life vision and knowing what you want for your life and knowing who you are and having that confidence in yourself and knowing that I'm going to surround myself with those people who are going to build me up, who are going to encourage me to go after my dreams. And I'm not going to sit and stare at the media and do and compare myself to whatever the media deems as successful. I'm going to find it for myself, and I'm going to go for it no matter what. And I think those are the people that rise up and create those stories. Those are people that we look back on in history. They're not the ones that sat down and were like, I can't do it. They were like, no, I'm just going to go for it no matter what, no excuses. And so you don't have to put yourself in a box. You don't have to set yourself limits. Like, honestly, the sky is the limit. And so if you want to write books and build an awesome company, you can do both. If you want to do more than that, you can. And there's so many different authors we've already talked to. And I think one of the things you'll notice if you go back through each of our episodes and talk to the authors, while we talk about books, and writing and editing, there are also other things that they talk about. And it comes out like those different things that they're passionate about. And so writing is not an all or nothing career. It can be an all and everything career. And it's so funny because writing and storytelling touches every facet in every single area of life. And even when I've spent a lot of time in marketing, so digging into marketing, the number one thing they'll tell you is like, to be effective at marketing, you need to have a story, because stories sell. And no matter what industry you're in, then you need to be able to tell a good story in order to sell whatever it is you're selling, even if it's a book, products, services, like they all require that story. And so I think you'll find, as you go after whatever it is that you want, those multiple passions, you'll find that they do have a link back to storytelling and to telling stories and making sure that you get that messaging across. And so yeah, I would just say being multi-passionate, it's a gift, and just go for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, that's really the conversation we wanted to have because um though indie authors may not say it out loud, there are a good chunk where it's like, I love to be an author, but I don't want to just be an author. There are other things that I love. And so this is really an encouragement for you to not restrain that creativity at all, and to not just, lay it to the side, but realize that you are allowed to give yourself permission to do it all. You know what I mean? To do it absolutely all. And so these are just some of the things that we wanted to talk to you about. If you find yourself in a position where you're like, okay, I'm about to be an author, or I've already been an author for quite some time, but I don't want to be a full-time author. Dig deep into, what it is that you like to do, bring out those old passions. Dreams do not die unless you bury them yourself, right? Like they are still there, and they can be picked up, and they can be brought back to life. And so we just want to encourage you guys, don't limit yourself, dig deep, find what you love, and just know that it is okay if you decide you do not want to be a full-time author.
And with that, we will end this, but make sure you come across to the show notes and leave a comment and share your thoughts on your biggest takeaways from this episode. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Indie Author Lifestyle Show. The journey to becoming a full-time author on your own terms is easier than you think. Plus, our community is one of a kind. With workshops, writing, and marketing resources, and much more, we're here to help you live your best indie author life. Ready to dive in? Visit indieauthorlifestyle.com/inner circle for more details. Let's chat again in the next episode.